November 2007, my second year of high school. A year that many consider one of the best in gaming history, with huge releases like Super Mario Galaxy, Uncharted, God of War 2, and Mass Effect. And I don't want to disappoint you all, but I gotta admit, I don't really remember much of those games. Why? Because I only got the Xbox 360 in 2008. Back then, I was still on the PS2, spending hours and hours on GTA San Andreas. The Xbox 360 and PS3 looked awesome, but back then they were just a faraway dream, the kind of thing I'd only play at a store demo or at a friend's house. So if 2007 was legendary for many gamers, for me it was kinda dull. It was the end of the consoles I actually owned, not the beginning of a whole new generation. But I do remember that trailer, the one with this guy in a medieval-looking robe jumping onto a guard. An ultra-realistic medieval setting that made Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time trilogy games look outdated. A game where you could explore an ancient world in a way I had never seen before. I dreamed about that game, I needed to play it. And finally, when my brother got an Xbox 360 a couple of years later, Assassin's Creed 2 was already out. So I skipped the first one and jumped straight into the sequel. And what a game! Exploring Florence and Venice, climbing rooftops, it felt so liberating. Back then, the possibilities seemed endless. From there, I got into the series, though I wouldn't call myself an expert. I played Assassin's Creed 3, Black Flag, Origins, and even the Liberation spin-off in New Orleans. Eventually, I stopped after Origins. I just didn't like the new formula, but I get why the franchise had to change. Every new Assassin's Creed just felt the same. A couple of months ago, I found a copy of the original Assassin's Creed for the PS3 at a pawn shop, and I thought, let's finally try it out. Almost 20 years later, is it still fun? Let's find out together. Welcome back to the Retro Game In. If you're new to the channel, here we talk about retro games and nostalgia. Ah, the PS3 and Xbox 360. When we think about retro gaming, they don't usually come to mind. But they came out almost 20 years ago. 20 years, that's crazy. To me, that generation was when cross-platform gaming really started to take off. And now, well, it's just the norm. Well, except for Nintendo, they're still in their own world. So, Assassin's Creed came out in November 2007, almost 18 years ago. It released during that shift from the old 128-bit days to HD. Early PS3 and Xbox 360 games still felt kinda old school, but later ones looked almost like PS4 games. And Assassin's Creed definitely feels like it belongs to that early HD experimental era. Back then, the game was a massive release. The trailers were mind-blowing, parkour, medieval vibes, an open world where you could explore historical cities. It sold over 1 million copies in the first week, and of course, it launched a franchise that's still alive today. For those who remember the Prince of Persia 3D games, Assassin's Creed is kinda the descendant of that franchise, only with more freedom and, obviously, a totally different setting. In fact, Assassin's Creed became so popular that it completely overshadowed Prince of Persia, making the series almost disappear for more than 10 years. In 2012, what seems to be a random guy named Desmond gets kidnapped by a secret society and forced to use a machine that lets him relive his ancestors' memories. So you'll follow two parallel stories, Desmond's and Altair's. Most of the game takes place in Altair's world, and honestly, those medieval parts are the best, super immersive and just way more fun. The modern day stuff though feels weaker. It kinda pulls you out of the action without much payoff. And since this first game doesn't reveal that much yet, those sections just slow things down. I get that they're setting up the bigger story, but you don't really see where it's going until the second game. Altair's story is all about earning back your rank after being demoted. It's a cool setup at first, but the story isn't very deep. The cutscenes use the in-game engine, so yeah, they look pretty rough by today's standards. But they get the job done. If you like conspiracy-style stories, you'll still enjoy it. Though, I've gotta say, the storytelling isn't as strong as in the later games, even the second one. If you've played the early Assassin's Creed games, you'll feel right at home. Most of the core elements are already there.
exploring multiple cities linked by a light open world area. Parkour and those tower climbs to reveal the map and keep progressing, which honestly are still a lot of fun. And obviously assassination missions after completing side quests. But the connecting areas are where the game starts to feel a bit dated. You'll definitely get the sense of being in a corridor with just a few different paths to choose from. I found the navigation kind of frustrating, since the map doesn't really show where you can go. I kept pausing the game just to check. So yeah, those parts feel outdated, but I still appreciated being able to get some fresh air outside the cities. Although it does get pretty annoying being chased all the time, like every time you run into guards. Stop following me. Let me walk. Come on guys, let me... Oh my god. Combat is also one of the parts where the game really shows its age. It's very one-on-one, the enemies just sort of wait their turn. It's fine, but it feels kinda weird when you're surrounded by 6 guards. What are you guys doing? And sometimes it just gets messy when you're fighting a bunch of enemies, especially on the PS3 with the lag. Oh, and I don't know why sometimes I found it really long to flee from enemies. You can quickly escape on horseback, but in cities, you can't unless you hide or fight. I don't know if that's intentional or just me, let me know in the comments if you had the same experience. So yeah, sometimes it can get pretty boring after a 10-minute chase. It's not even hard, just boring. Other times, you have to fight on small platforms, which can get pretty messy since the combat wasn't really designed for tight spaces. Oh, and that one's on me, but I gotta admit, playing with a buggy PS3 controller that kept switching weapons mid-fight definitely didn't help my case. Anyways, the main issue in this game is, I think, repetition. Every city gives you the same missions over and over. Follow a target, interrogate someone, steal an item, collect some item, and obviously assassinate. It's fun at first, but after 8 hours, it gets tiring. I also struggled a bit with assassinations, not the big story ones, but the basic ones. Maybe it's just the way I play, but I found it really hard to stay sneaky when the target was in a crowded area and wouldn't move. They also get a bit more challenging later on, especially when you have to take out several targets in under 5 minutes. The good thing is, you can always skip those phases and do other missions instead, so you're never really stuck before finishing the sequence. And yeah, I took advantage of that, I'll admit. You also get some side content, like extra contracts, basically missions for extortion, stealing, collecting items or assassinations. In fact, the whole game is built around picking these kinda side quests and completing 3 of them to unlock an assassination sequence. So yeah, you might do a couple extra just for fun, but it does get repetitive. It wouldn't be a Ubisoft game without a generous helping of classic collectibles to chase. Don't worry, they're pretty much useless. Once you've got them all, the only satisfaction you get is seeing them in the stats. Oh, and there are citizens to save, which always boil down to the exact same thing, beating up a group of guards. In return, you get some protection from civilians when trying to escape an area, and some extra health. It's more useful than collectibles, but still kinda weak. Like I said, it gets repetitive pretty fast. That said, the big assassination sequences still shine. You get some freedom, sneak in or fight your way through. And the escape phases after the kills are really fun, full of adrenaline and super immersive. That freedom kept me invested until the last chapters. However, someone please explain this to me. Why is there a weird cutscene after you assassinate a character while they still look alive, standing like nothing happened? That's so weird. The graphics still look pretty good. Sure, the landscapes between cities are pretty empty and the draw distance ain't great, but the buildings, characters and overall atmosphere are enough to make it fun and nice to see. Yes, some city buildings feel generic, especially if you've played later games, but overall it still looks good today, especially compared to other 3D games from that era that aged way worse. But don't expect the cities and environments to be as detailed as in Assassin's Creed 2. Ubisoft made those cities way more realistic, with more historical buildings and even streets that stick closely to reality. But I like that each city has its own theme. Acre feels very European with its grey and blue tones and a kinda desolate medieval atmosphere, while Damascus is way more vibrant. Jerusalem feels really sacred and atmospheric. And Masyaf is not as exciting, since it's mostly just your home base, but I like that they added another smaller town. Also, shout out to the viewpoints you see when entering each city, they look amazing. The soundtrack does its job, it fits the action, but it's not all that memorable. It's very much that cinematic video game music style, works great in the moment but doesn't really stand out. Still, it's in line with what the series usually does. The game has a pretty easy difficulty. Some sections might take a bit more focus or a few retries, but nothing that really gets tough. Like I said, I played it on the PS3, which I think is an inferior version compared to the Xbox 360 and PC versions. This framerate drop you're seeing, that's actually the game running at normal speed. So, is it worth it in 2025? Well, if you're a fan of the franchise, medieval settings, or just curious to see how it all started, absolutely, go for it. It's cheap, pretty fun, and a cool piece of modern gaming history. Is it the best game you'll play this year? Probably not, but it's enjoyable and refreshing in its simplicity. Back when action-adventure games didn't drown you in RPG systems, endless skill trees, massive cutscenes, and all that cinematic stuff. It was more about giving you a quick, straightforward way to enjoy a game, with most of the focus on the gameplay itself. Sure, Assassin's Creed is kinda the prequel to that modern gaming era, but it sits in this interesting in-between, early enough in the PS3 Xbox 360 generation to feel fresh, yet pointing towards the more ambitious open-world cinematic style that would later define most AAA action-adventure games. If you're looking for the most complete old-school Assassin's Creed experience, I'd still recommend Assassin's Creed 3, Black Flag or Rogue over this one. Or even Assassin's Creed 2 that feels way more complete and has a way better story. But as a time capsule, definitely worth checking out. So that's it guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments what's your favorite Assassin's Creed game. If you like this video, please consider giving a thumbs up and subscribing to support the channel. I'll see you next time right here at the Retro Gaming.